Last Friday I released a video about the life of Paul von Hindenburg, and to give you a spoiler if you missed it, one of the battles that made him into a living legend was the Battle of Tannenberg at the beginning of the First World War. The German forces annihilated the Russians, and the victory cemented von Hindenburg's reputation within Germany. After the crushing defeat, the commander of the Russian army took his own life, and as I was reading up on this, he really sparked my curiosity. Who was this man that led such a crushing defeat, and what was his background? Samsonov was born in an administrative territorial unit, the Kherson Governorate of the Russian Empire, and moved to Russia during his early teens in order to attend the Nikolaev Cadet School in St. Petersburg. This school was attended by many men that would play a role in history, among which the Finnish military leader and statesman Carl Gustav Emil Mannerheim. The Russo-Turkish War from 1877 to 78 was Samsonov's baptism of fire, after which he decided to attend the Military Staff College. Furthermore, he saw action during the Chinese Boxer Rebellion in 1900 and the Russo-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905. The Russo-Japanese War saw, among other battles, the Battle of Mukden, the biggest battle the world had seen and would see until the First World War. Now, what's interesting later on is that Paul von Rennenkampf, another Russian general, got into conflict with Samsonov in the aftermath of the lost battle. Paul von Rennenkampf was notorious for his inadequate time management. Samsonov accused Rennenkampf of not coming to his aid during the Battle of Mukden. This will be important later on because these two men commanded the Russian army again during the First World War and during the Battle of Tannenberg. We'll get to that in a second though. For now, the Russo-Japanese War was an absolute disaster for Russia. As a matter of fact, it was the first time a Western power was defeated by another one. Anyway, Russia lost, and after the war, Samsonov became the chief of staff of Warsaw in Poland, and later on, until the First World War, he was the governor of Russian Turkestan. 9 years after the Battle of Mukden, the First World War broke out, and Samsonov was given the command of the Russian Second Army and tasked with the invasion of East Prussia via the south, whereas Rennenkampf commanded the First Army and was tasked with invading Prussia from the east. The Germans were surprised by how quickly the Russians were able to mobilize, and Samsonov moved up to the southwest corner of East Prussia with the intention of later joining General Rennenkampf's army, which had crossed the border within 2 weeks of the outbreak of the war. The 150,000 men of Rennenkampf's army outnumbered all German troops stationed in East Prussia. The German general Maximilian von Prittwitz retreated in a panic and abandoned East Prussia. This was the reason the German military high command decided to replace him with Paul von Hindenburg and Erich Ludendorff. Though the Germans retreated, the lack of communication between the Russians, Samsonov and Rennenkampf, hindered coordination, and not only that, but Samsonov and Rennenkampf were no friends of each other. This whole campaign from Russia's perspective has been colorfully captured in the novel August 1914 by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. With von Hindenburg and Ludendorff installed, the two men decided to use the German railway system to emphasize on their ability to mobilize over the Russians. A German battalion was sent to the western flank of the Second Army under Samsonov, still advancing northward, confident that von Rennenkampf would attack the German First Army from the other side. Fact of the matter was that Rennenkampf had stopped his advance, and Samsonov was unaware that he was being encircled by German troops. To add to that, Rennenkampf had a codebook and could send coded telegrams, but Samsonov did not have such a book, which resulted in the telegrams he sent and received being intercepted by the Germans. Now, the battle took place near Allenstein in present-day Poland. In order to understand why it was named the Battle of Tannenberg, we have to go back to the early 15th century, when Lithuania-Poland was the largest territorial state in Europe. Extension eastward was blocked by the Golden Horde at the Battle of the Vorska Liver in 1399, and 11 years later, in 1410, a Polish-Lithuanian army defeated the Teutonic Knights at the Battle of Tannenberg, also referred to as the Battle of Grunwald. Hindenburg coined his victory the Battle of Tannenberg, adding a mythical dimension to it, referring to the defeat 500 years before and the revenge the Germans had taken. 2 German battalions went southward to meet the Russian Second Army, whereas the remaining German soldiers spread out in order to form a wall, just in case Paul von Rennenkampf did decide to move. The first successes von Rennenkampf's army had, as they marched into East Prussia, were nothing compared to the absolute annihilation of Samsonov's army. He tried to lead his army out of the chaos, but they were encircled by the Germans. Merely 10,000 of the 150,000 Russian soldiers managed to escape. Over 75,000 were killed or wounded, and over 90,000 were taken as prisoners of war, whereas the Germans lost under 15,000 soldiers. Samsonov, amidst of the chaos, must have been horrified and stunned. Furthermore, he understandably worried about the reaction of Tsar Nicholas II. Just 3 days ago, he had 250,000 Russian troops at his disposal, of which only a few percent escaped. During the staggering defeat, Samsonov retreated into a nearby forest and committed suicide on the 30th of August 1914. His body would not be returned to Russia until 1916, 2 years later. After the defeat, von Rennenkampf and his badly mauled army retreated back over the pre-war border in order to escape encirclement. After a Russian investigation, not Rennenkampf, but another general, Yakov Zhilinsky, was blamed for the failure of the East Prussian campaign, and he was relieved of his command. This, however, did not stop the angry Russian nationalists from hanging von Rennenkampf in effigy, calling him Rennen ohne Kampf, running without a fight. He would be dismissed a year later in 1915 after being held responsible for other failures during the war, but that's a story for another time. The Battle of Tannenberg is mainly remembered because it cemented von Hindenburg's myth in the German collective consciousness and contributed to the increase of prestige of both von Hindenburg and Ludendorff. Often the victors of battles are remembered, but perhaps after this video you'll agree with me that the story of a beaten general can be just as interesting. Thank you for watching this video, and what is an event or a person that tends to be overshadowed that you would like to know more about and perhaps see a video of? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this video interesting, consider subscribing to this channel. See you next time.